Okay, so I see we have an excellent report on the YouTube stream. Twitch is running. So it appears that everything is working correctly. So I will do my little hit enter sequencing very quickly. There we go. Which fortunately I I loaded all these in before I started the stream. So there we are. I can now close Discord. Oh, I do need to double check that Reflector is actually pulling. It is. Okay, good. So now I just have to post it. I forgot to put it on Instagram today. That's okay.
You've got mail, man.
I would just assume people get sick of my spam stuff. Okay. Oh, I just got an email about something. I will respond to that in due course. All right. So I just need to copy this into, where did I put it? Right here. Sorry about that. Let me just do copy text. And we're going to do a paste. There we are. Go ahead and paste that. Let's go ahead and there's that chat rate thing. I don't know what chat rate means. I really don't. I do not understand what that thing is indicating, unless it's just a general statement. Does it do a self-test to make sure the chat's working, which doesn't make any sense, but it's the only thing that I can think of. Because otherwise, I don't get what that chat rate thing means, because there is no chat on my screen. So this is, again, I'm going to check on, what's the word for? I'm going to check in a second to make sure that I'm pasting a, okay. I'm done with all my pasting links. Let me just do a real quick test in case anybody's, hello, chat. Bang. Okay, there's mine. Nobody else's. Hello, chat. There we go. Bang. Okay, so I don't know what the chat rate 1 means, since mine is the only one in there. So if you're in there, I'm sorry, because I'm not seeing it, but I really don't believe it's that. I think it must be something with YouTube. I don't pretend to understand what's going on there. It doesn't make any sense. In any event. Okay. All right, here we go. And so, oh, let me do my little intro thing. So, do that. There we are. Yeah, it still says chat rate 1. I don't get that. Everything else is working, right? Yeah, mic is good. Yeah, that's fine. It's just whatever that is. I don't know. And there we are. Okay, so as I said in the previous stream, I don't think anybody actually was there for the live part of that. So if you watched the last video, in that one I said, well, I'm not going to do all of this, meaning the stained glass parts, on the streams. And so I did a second layer, because I think when I did the last stream, I had only done this part of it. Now it's yellow for a reason. So I did the second part of it before this stream, because it's going to be a lot quicker now once I've done that stuff. So the reason it's yellow is so that I can differentiate very easily what parts I have to erase. So it will not remain yellow, I don't think. It may be some color, it will not be yellow, because, I don't know, I don't think that would, let's see, I'm just curious, does it actually look good? Yeah, you know what? Well, it doesn't look terrible. I have to admit, it doesn't look awful, although I wonder why is it showing up black on some and not on others? Huh. Well, I guess it is. No, it isn't. That doesn't make any sense. Why is that one why is that yellow? Hold on a minute, that doesn't make any sense at all. Let me switch these both to normal and just see what I'm looking at here. Something's odd about that. Switch to normal. Yeah. Hold on. No, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, I don't know why that one thing shows up as, oh, I know why. I bet I do know why, because they're overlapping, I think. So I think when they're overlapping, they're like canceling each other out. No, it's not that one. Why is that one only showing up yellow in that one spot? That's bizarre. I don't understand that at all. And it's only that one, right? Or no, wait. Hold on. Oh, already? It already dropped the connection? That's a good sign. That and my confusion over... Well, I guess some of them, other ones are yellow. Okay, it isn't just that one. I don't know what's going on there. It doesn't matter, because they're not going to stay like that. But anyway, the reason for it is that... Oh, I didn't get rid of the repeaters on this, so not all of them anyway. Oh, that might be bad. Actually, no, it's not. It's not bad. No, it's not bad. Okay, let me switch this to normal. Normal? I don't want any overlappers on this, so I need to get rid of... So I missed a little bit here. Sorry. Just finish this cleanup real quick. There we are. And, oh, jeez. There we are. Just in case anybody puts something in the chat, just making sure I can see it. It put it behind the screen because it's dropped the reflector connection for a minute. Yep, there's something. Instead of just making an iPad with a newer screen, how about having it do better screen sharing options, Apple? There's an idea. There's another one. That's okay. These are all right. These are not a big deal because it just means I have to... It's not a big deal. It just means I missed these because I'm trying to make sure these don't overlap. Okay. So... If you heard the very beginning, I think it picked up where I said that I had gotten an email because I had done one of my short podcast shows talking about Apple on the day this is streaming, on Thursday. And I was talking about the fact that I miss what Apple used to do, how they used to be a more playful, whimsical company. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I'm gonna respond to this email very quickly to say, here we go. Hold on, I shouldn't be doing this on the stream, but you know what? I'm not going to do this on the stream. I'll reply to him later. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, on the short show, the main thrust of it, because the 5-minute shows I do, the short shows Monday through Thursday, they're generally single topic, almost always. Now, sometimes I may be saying 2 things about that topic, but it's about one thing. And I was thinking about, because I had seen a little news article, again, it's current as of this stream. It'll be long gone, or out of the news anyway, by the time this goes to the YouTube channel, if you're seeing it later. But, wait, why am I not seeing both? There it is. Okay, so this is where it's going to get interesting now. I have to actually be a little bit careful with this. So anywhere there's yellow, I have to erase. So I'm just... gonna swirl this stuff out, so bear with me a minute. So I was talking about, because there was an article I had seen about this product, which I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of it, but somebody basically crafted this little, I don't know, this little custom-made case, which I think they are selling. I'm pretty sure you can buy it, but it's this little custom-made case. Is there a thing there or not? Let me just check. Yes, it's just very faint, but it is there. Okay, just making sure. It's hard to see it. This little custom case that you put on your Apple Watch, which turns it into kind of a pseudo... I don't know what the person who made it described it as, but basically like a lightweight phone, because, and most people probably already know this, with an Apple Watch, you can put a cellular connection on it so it can work independently of an iPhone, so that it does not require you... Yeah, okay, just checking. I'm just double checking my stuff so I don't get too far. Oh, yeah, that's fine. To have an iPhone to be able to use it. It has its own cellular connection. Now, I believe you do still need to own an iPhone to be able to activate it. I don't think they've removed that requirement. So you would still need an iPhone. But you wouldn't... But if you have one, you don't need to have the iPhone with you once it's active. It has its own cellular connection, its own data, all that stuff. And so I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, that's such a neat little thing. And there was a time where Apple made neat little things like that. When I was younger, when I was a young man, Apple, the first Apples I remember ever using, and you can go look these up because in the modern era, there's really no equivalent to this. They have not gone back to this in years and years and years. But early on, they had these Macs that were described as the Bondi Blue Macs, and they came in all these wild colors. And they were translucent cases, which is now getting big again. Even Apple makes their, what do they call those? The Beats Pro earbuds have a translucent version, which I got because it's great. But the Macs themselves were all translucent with a color. So they were clear, but they had a color. It was like a clear colored case. And like I said, if you just do a search for Bondi Blue Mac, you'll find it immediately. And and there was a period of time where Apple was making really, really distinctive, interesting stuff, where it all had this very, very kind of fun, distinct identity, and you would know the difference if you saw somebody using a Mac. You knew it, not just because there was an Apple on it, but partially because of the colors and the design. There was things that made it stand out. And that was, that was in the rebuilding era of Apple. That was when Steve Jobs had first come back, and, Apple was still seen by a lot of people as possibly being in danger of actually failing. So imagine those days. Those days are so far over at the moment. But they were doing things to make themselves be really known. They had the multicolored Apple logo, where it was the 6 different colors. And it was just this thing where you knew what an Apple was, not just because it had an apple on it, but also because they were really fun, quirky. The word I used in my short show was whimsical. Whimsical devices that felt like they were just really neat to have. I mean, I know now it's as much a, you want to have an Apple device, but they're so, in many ways, they're so boring. And people have complained about this, in particular with the iPhone, saying, oh, that the space is stagnant. But part of that stagnation is because Apple has abandoned this really fun, again, quirky, whimsical, those types of words, just generally fun approach to how they made their hardware. I mean, you used to be able to just get these really bright, almost, I'm sure some people hated them at the time. I know not everybody was a fan of them. But there was something, and they still retain it in, I believe there is still one version of the iPhone where you can get really interesting colors. I think it's the one without any designations after it, because, there's an an iPhone, Pro and Max or whatever. I think only in the ones that don't have either of those words, you can get bright, interesting colors, which a lot of people like. And the colors that exist in the higher end phones aren't really great colors. I mean, they're very muted and frankly uninteresting. And I've heard people who say, well, that's because professionals don't want that stuff. They want their stuff to be subtle. I'm like, I don't believe that. I mean, not as a justification for it across the board. Yes, people who are doing color grading and things like that, they're going to want a neutral space. I understand that. Yeah, there's the But that's not everybody, and that's not everybody. Everybody who buys a Pro or whatever phone, or laptop for that matter, they're not all color graders. You know what I mean? Not every person who buys a Pro laptop is actually a pro in that way. Some people just want to have more horsepower, but they also would like their machine to have some kind of personality. I know I would. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm maybe not the best example because I don't care that much about color. I don't. But, or at least I'm not doing high color accuracy. But you know what? You would always have those options. It's not like I think that if Apple started having colors in their machines, that they would suddenly discontinue the grays and the blacks and the whites. I wouldn't mind seeing white laptops come back either. They used to do white laptops. Those are long gone too. You don't get a lot of stuff, at least in the. They haven't made a white MacBook. They haven't made a white MacBook either, but they haven't made a white MacBook Pro, and I don't even know how long. And even the low-end ones, I don't believe they have the white color available anymore. When they could absolutely do it. They could absolutely do that. And, and maybe white specifically would be tough because of the aluminum. I don't know if you can bleach aluminum. I don't know how that color process works and that stuff. So maybe they couldn't do white, but you can't tell me because they do have these, like I said, these really weird muted colors. And maybe that's because of the coloring process for the cases, but are you really going to tell me that there's no way that they can figure that out? Apple figures out lots of things. I'm pretty sure they could figure out how to make vibrant colors for their laptop shells. I'm pretty sure they could do that if they wanted to. I don't think they have any interest in doing so, which, hey, it's their company. And this was my point in the short show. I said, this is the problem here is that Apple doesn't need to do any of this stuff. They're no longer on the back foot. They don't have to stand out. They don't have to demonstrate what makes them special anymore because they just make too much money. And it's the problem with lots of companies. It's not specific to Apple. Most companies, when they get to a certain point of success, the need to, I don't want to use the word innovation, that's used too much, but the need to do interesting things to get people to come to them, it goes away. It goes away, and they fundamentally become comfortable, which isn't bad. I'm not saying that they should suddenly reinvent their entire product line every year and throw a lot of people off, but I think that the power of Apple's stability is in their hardware. They make devices that are largely very, very functional, that work well, that deliver a lot of things that people want. And so that's where my point was, well, now that you meaning Apple, I'm like, and my point of it was, Apple, you've locked down, I think I used this specific term, I said you've locked down the hardware side of things. Like, you did it. You did Apple Silicon. It was a huge success. Virtually no one can deny how important Apple Silicon has been for the company, and that most people, who are objective about it, look at Apple Silicon and think, yeah, this took a company that was already doing exceptionally well, and basically, for certainly the near term, at least I would say the next 5 to 10 years, Apple would have to do something or have some kind of problem so spectacular that they would fail, or that they would even be in any trouble. It's just, there's no way. So but that's what I'm saying is, so the Apple Silicon transition and success, for all intents and purposes, has insulated Apple from having to worry about much of anything. They have the freedom to experiment. They choose not to. They just don't want to. They don't have any, as far as anybody can really tell. I mean, yes, of course, somebody will say, well, their R&D does all kinds of weird things, so you can't say they don't experiment. Yeah, but, R&D is nothing as far as the outside world is concerned. What have we seen that is really wild and experimental? Vision Pro? No, that's a VR headset. Just because it's an Apple product doesn't make it anything other than a VR headset. It's just Apple's VR headset, but it's not. I'm sorry, no matter what you think of it, it is not demonstrably all that different than another VR headset. It is foundationally, if you took the Apple Vision Pro and put it next to a Oculus or whatever other VR headsets currently exist, there isn't a lot of difference in the way that they look, but the way that they function, really. And I'm not talking, I know that the specs are better. I get it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that an average person would put on the two headsets, and some of them would notice that there was a difference, and many probably would not. Yeah, there would be fidelity, there would be app differences, sure, okay. Once you train them on it, there would be distinctions. But in terms of what the product actually is, how it looks and how it performs, or not, I shouldn't say performs, performance is a different thing, in how it functions, it's the same thing. You put it on, you're put into an immersive experience that will often fool you into believing that it is reality, and you have different things that you can do within that space. That's no different. Sorry, it's no different than an Oculus or a PlayStation VR or anything else. And I don't mean in its capabilities. Yes, I understand. PlayStation VR I don't think can run Microsoft Word. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is something that stands out. Because you think on the Vision Pro too. That in the Vision... Oh, I just saw my own chat and I thought somebody had said something. No, it's just me. I'm reading myself. I'm echoing myself. The Vision Pro felt like a place where they could have done something really compelling. It really did. I thought, oh, this is where it's going to be. Apple is going to do something here. Because it just seemed like, well, they're not going to just leave it as is. They're going to have to... That's fine. I'm not going to mind that. They could push this. So I really thought that the Vision Pro was going to have different colors. I thought it was going to have... I don't know. I thought it was going to be something that felt like the older experimental Apple, because it's a big swing product. It's a very future looking product, and that's the way that you kind of distinguish it. But honestly, if you didn't really, I don't, is the Apple logo even on the visor anywhere? I didn't even look. Now that I think about it, I don't think it is. I don't think it's on the front of it. So I'm just, and my reference point for that is, okay, I'm thinking about my mother. My mother knows what an Apple product is. Would she know, if she just saw a random person wearing that thing, would she know it was an Apple product? And I don't think, hi Kitty, I'm talking to my dog there. I don't think that she would. You know what I mean? And that's what I feel like Apple is missing now, is they don't have something that gives it that signature of of the company anymore. They just, and again, the part that mystifies me about that is the fact that I think they're in the best position to do things like that they've ever been, because their products are, at this point, from the hardware and even the OS, for the most part, not completely, but in a large way. Oh, my dog has lots of little burrs in her fur from being out in the grass. Yeah, I didn't see that one before. Hold on, I'm just checking her. I don't want to get one of these in her ear. Okay, she's fine. Just checking her really quick. I missed that one earlier. I often give her what I give her a massage, where I'm kind of feeling for any of these little burrs that can, because it's very, very dry in Northern California. So these little things, these weeds essentially, can get caught. I'm always trying to make sure they don't get in her ears, because I don't want her to have a problem. But, Apple could do this stuff. They really could. And I do miss the fact that used to be what the company did. Again, when it was in kind of a more, I don't want Apple to end up in a bad position to have to do this stuff, but you would think there would be, I don't know, some desire to do that stuff again, to take a product. Again, the Vision Pro just feels like it should have been that, where they were like, all right, this is going to be, and honestly, and I already mentioned it, the product that feels the most like that right now are those Beats Pro things that I've got that are in a translucent case. And the fact that feels like a product that reminds me of the old Apple, that's not good. I mean, again, just so nobody thinks I'm, completely delusional, do I think this has any real impact on Apple? No. They're going to be fine. Just because they don't make Bondi Blue Max doesn't mean that they're in any kind of trouble. I did not insinuate that in my short show. I'm not trying to say that now. I don't think they're not gonna have a problem because they're not making multicolored Macs. Like I said, there was a time where Apple had this really wonderful kind of visual style to them, and I feel like that has mostly been abandoned in their premier products. It feels like it's something that's relegated to what Apple considers second-class citizens of their own products. And I think that's a shame, because I think the stuff that Apple has done design-wise in recent years hasn't been all that interesting. Even the MacBook Air. I remember reading an article a few weeks ago or something like that, where somebody was talking about the fact that they missed the wedge-shaped MacBook Air because it gave this distinct... You knew what a MacBook Air looked like because it had this wedge shape. Now, I believe, and I have to check on this, that's the other reason I want to respond to my email yet, because I want to confirm a couple things to make sure I have my facts. I mean, I know some of my facts are straight, but I want to have like an exhaustive list. But some of these things were because of a designer named Johnny Ive who worked at Apple for a while. He and Steve Jobs were apparently very, very close. They shared a lot of kind of similar design ideology and philosophy. And then, when Steve Jobs died, from all accounts, Johnny Ive was kind of lost because, and I understand this to a degree, that if you have somebody that you feel like is that influential to you and that person dies, it's very, very tough. I can imagine what that would do to somebody, especially when, you've defined a lot of your life around your relationship with that person, to then not have that person there, and the person who basically is more or less in their place is not that type of person. Tim Cook, by almost no account that I can find anywhere, is much of a design person. He's a logistics person, which is, you need that. Apple absolutely needs Tim Cook to be where he is. That's why the money has kept going. But I think that is why you've seen I don't want to say degradation, that's the wrong word for it, but you've seen a less of a prioritization on products having a personality and reflecting a company that seems to have any vision of itself outside of just making sleek gray metal boxes. I mean, that's really what it feels like Apple makes now. They're not really making products that make you think of them as anything other than making very good hardware. Far from the worst thing to be known for, by the way. I mean, I have recommended more than a few times, in fact, just this week, to my mother-in-law, because she was looking to replace her Dell, and she was looking at another Dell, and I said, you know, you already have an iPhone. The last Dell you got, which was not a cheap one, didn't last you 5 years, whereas I've had older Mac laptops, and I certainly would expect new ones to last just as long, that have lasted me 8 or 9 years. Not something that, if I'm just being objective about it, a lot of Windows machines can say. So I told her, I said, you know, I think you should look at a Mac, because it's going to give you a lot more capability with your iPhone. You'll be able to do things with it. I think that you should look at that. And she got a Mac. I'm going to be setting up for this weekend as of the recording of this. Because I said, you know, your photos will all appear there, your messages will be synced across it. It just made a lot of sense. And I said, and I think it's going to last you a lot longer than these Dells are. And I think not only is it going to last longer, but it's going to perform better over that life, because that's been my experience. And that's what I mean about Apple's got the hardware end of it solved. They can make good stuff that works well for a long time. Many iPhones, you'll hear people talk about the fact that their phones are generational devices. So when a parent, if they have children or whatever, a parent has an iPhone, the newer one, a couple years down the line, a new one comes out they want, child gets it because it works perfectly fine. So rather than, you know, just dispose of it, why not let somebody benefit from it? Because in many cases, the OS is going to be current. And it works, you know, for certainly as a secondary device, if you format it and everything, it's going to work virtually the same. Really is. That's one of the reasons I haven't, I mean, I'm still, this is the M1 iPad Pro. And, you know, yeah, okay, and OLED screen, that's nice, but I don't have any really compelling reason to upgrade this thing. None. It does everything I need it to do. There's nothing that new one, or the new Pencil, in my case, the Pencil Pro, I guess it's called, nothing there I care about. And that's not really a complaint. But you know what? I'll be honest with you. Just to be completely honest. Oh, wow, that's really big. Okay. I can't use it there. If they had offered some kind of fancy new color, would that maybe have gotten me to think about it? Honestly, it probably would have. It probably would have made me consider getting a new one if it was available, well, in my case, like in a nice red, like a product red. The iPad Pro came in this, like a candy product red color or something like that. Would I think about it? Gotta tell you. Probably would. Now, don't get me wrong. Ultimately, I wouldn't have gotten it because I always put my iPad in a case. I cannot imagine using my iPad without a case. People who use expensive devices without cases, I don't understand them. I just don't. Because, man, it must be nice to not care if you break a multi-$1,000 device, which much of this stuff now is. I mean, the only reason I was able to afford an iPad Pro to begin with is because I got money from doing magic artist proofs. It's the only reason. So you better believe this thing is in a protective case and has been from the minute that I got it. Are you kidding? I can't just go buy another one. And that's another reason why, even if they did come out with a really neat color, I couldn't get another one. I can't afford that. It's an expensive device. I was listening to a thing with somebody who got one, and even they were sitting here going, I can't justify this by any really rational metric except that I review devices, so it's somewhat of a write-off. But otherwise, there would be no reason for me on my own to buy a new iPad. You know. But like I said, if they were if they were in newer colors, that would be something that would at least make me stop and consider for a minute before I ultimately, smacked myself in the face and said, "Come on, what are you doing?" But I would sit there and go, It would make me want it. It would give me that thing of wanting the device, even if I knew it was completely impractical and nonsensical for me to get it. It would make me think about it. That's not something Apple really does much anymore. It's literally something where if there's not a practical reason, meaning like this iPad. I had an iPad Pro before this. The reason I got this one was because it offered a doubling of the amount of layers I could use in Procreate. That's why I got it. A practical reason for something I do all the time. I looked and I saw that it would double the layer count. And that is important when I'm talking about, if you look here, where is the canvas info? Canvas, right? I'm using right there 65. I have 140 available to me. If I only had 70, I would almost be out of them right now. And I consolidated some, so I was over 70 at one point. I'm pretty sure, maybe not the last stream, but the one before, I consolidated a whole bunch of layers. So that is a practical reason. But it wasn't, when I got it, it wasn't like I don't know, I was excited to use it, but I wasn't all that excited to see it. You know what I mean? There is a difference there. And maybe that's nothing to a lot of people. Maybe a lot of people think that's silly. Maybe it is. Maybe it is silly. Looks are not everything with a device like this. I'm sure some people have a very utilitarian view and are like, look, if the iPad does what you need it to do, who cares what it looks like? Put it in a case if you really want it to be read. And they're right. They're right. That's an absolutely legitimate argument that somebody, or a point of view that somebody can have. Can't argue that. Yes, I could just put it in a case that was red, which I have at times. It's currently in a black case because, as I said in my 5, I'm actually a big monotone guy. I love black and white. So I'm no problem living in that particular color space. No problem at all. But at the same time, if I could have gotten my MacBook Pro in a nice red, I would have. Absolutely would have. Would not even have not thought twice about it. I would have been like, yep, I'll take that in a nice product red, please. Like, bake that into that aluminum. Or whatever. I think it's aluminum. Pretty sure all the cases for I think all the laptops. I think even the low end, or lower end. I shouldn't really say low end. I don't think it's really fair to call any Mac that's on Apple Silicon at this point low end. They're all good machines. But I'm pretty sure that none of them offer anything that's not an aluminum case. Pretty sure they're all aluminum. Pretty sure. Not positive, but pretty sure of that. As well as the iPads. I think even the $300 and something iPad, well, I guess it's just called the iPad now. It used to be called the iPad Air. I don't think it's called that anymore. I think even that is aluminum. Pretty sure. So, a nice aluminum version of red. Ooh, nice literal metallic red. Yeah, I'd be there for that. That sounds great to me. So, and, that was, as you heard, if you're watching this, I've now gone on for over 30 minutes about this. So, obviously, I could have talked for a lot more time, and I will expand on this when I send my response to Mr. Pruitt, who sent me that email. I will definitely go into detail because it's very hard for me not to go into detail. That's just how I'm built. But that's the gist of what it was. It's just this thing where I feel like, yeah, there was a time where Apple was a more of a design force and maybe it is just the company doesn't want to be that anymore. It could just be that simple. Companies do change, especially when their leadership drastically changes, which I think you have to say that the loss of Steve Jobs is a drastic change, or was a drastic change to Apple. And I think that drastic change has never really... The void of Jobs has never really been filled. There has not been another person it feels like. Not even Johnny Ive, who did a lot of things, like bent a lot of products to his design will, in many cases to detrimental effect. His obsession with thinness, and I think he was in charge when the butterfly keyboard, which I think that was a component of being thinner, which was a disaster by all accounts. I mean, they ditched that 5 minutes after he was gone, so that should tell you something. But that's another thing about the new iPad. I don't know why it has to be so thin. The weight savings is great, but did it really need to be thinner? I haven't seen many people who feel that making it thinner was a really important change to make compared to, like I said earlier, some of the OS stuff that's missing, some of the continued headaches. That, I think most objective observers agree, would have been a better use of Apple's talent, would be to make the OS for iPad better. There are people who think that the iPad and Mac OSs should just merge or will merge. Sorry, I have to rub my eye really quick. It's itching me. I don't know that I agree with that. I think a lot of people have said, no, that's not where it's going, and I tend to agree. I don't think they're going to merge the OSs. But it is undeniable that there are aspects of Mac OS that should be present in iPad OS. File system management. Honestly, just to be honest about it, I think the Pro should have 2 ports. But there's also a lot of speculation that Apple is trying to go portless with everything. So I don't know. They would, but that's a part of the Pro thing, right? They've done that with the laptops. If you get a MacBook Air, it has 2 ports. If you get a MacBook Pro, it has, well, now it has many. At one point, I think it just had 4, but I don't remember that exactly. And now, my MacBook Pro has SD card slot. It has 3 USB ports. It has an HDMI out, which is what you would expect out of a device that says Pro on it. So at least they've again, that's, I think, because they were willing to get away from the thinness thing, which goes back to one of the things I said about the wedge going away, which is a shame, because the MacBook Air, because I've said, well, thin isn't everything, right? And I stand by that, but one of the exceptions to that would be the MacBook Air, which was conceived and was marketed. I think that the big famous demo for that was, I think Steve Jobs took it out of an envelope, and that was really impressive to everybody. I'm pretty sure you can go find that when that debuted, and I think what he did was he had a manila envelope or something that he took it out of, and everybody was just wowed by it because it was so thin. So in that case, that was the product's identity. That's the place where you say, yeah, that should be really thin, because its entire existence is predicated on being ultra portable. That was an answer to the netbooks of the time. That's something, I don't know, that was a pretty short fad, so some people may have forgotten netbooks even existed. But yes, there was a time where you would buy very small or very specialized laptops, and all they were really meant to do was lightweight web work, really, or very lightweight stuff. So they were very underpowered. I mean, at one point, everybody made them, and that's why Apple did the MacBook Air, was at least a partial response. I think that was their way of saying, okay, these don't have to all be terrible, because a lot of them were bad. I had a couple of them, and the best I could say about any of them is that they worked, but it wasn't ever what I would call a good experience. No, I don't think I could honestly say that. I don't think so. So yeah. So the MacBook Air, the wedge, that's one where I would think, okay, you keep that because you know what that is. But no, they dumped the wedge and they went back to a MacBook Air that's very similar in many ways to the MacBook Pro, even though it's really not meant to be a MacBook Pro. It's just, like I said, there's things about Apple today that just baffle me, and it's some of their decisions and some of the things that they just don't bother ever doing again. I really, truly do miss. I do miss the whimsical Apple. And as I said in my 5, and I'll say here, I think I'm using too big a brush. Yeah, I am. I screwed that up. There we go. I think that's okay. Yeah, that was where it really, I should have stopped. It's just that I don't think that company really exists anymore. And probably will not exist unless, and there is no indication of this whatsoever, won't exist unless the company somehow gets their back up against the wall again. And I don't know what would cause that, unless there was some kind of complete collapse of the phone market, or I don't know, something. There would have to be some level of either colossal mismanagement, or the market would have to shift in some radical, frankly ludicrous way for that to happen. I just don't think Apple, they've got their stuff down too much. They're never going to, I shouldn't say never. It's going to be quite a while, maybe not in my lifetime, before I would seriously think Apple might be put in a position where they have to take some wild chances. And I don't consider the Vision Pro a wild chance, because that market existed. I'm talking about doing something really, really out there. And I don't know that they could. I think that in some ways the perhaps the greatest mark of Steve Jobs' success in coming back to Apple was that he created a company so successful that somebody like him wouldn't even necessarily be welcome there today. If Steve Jobs, that's an interesting thing to think about. If Steve Jobs was somebody from the outside who wanted to come in and like, Apple wouldn't hire Steve Jobs today with his ideas. They'd say, no, you go start your own company. You're out on the fringe of this stuff. And that's probably what he would end up doing, is making his own company. But yeah, I don't know how welcome a Steve Jobs person is at Apple today. Obviously, if somebody's extremely well qualified, they're going to consider them. I'm not crazy. But as far as somebody like that who said, yeah, you know what, Apple needs to shake things up and really do some different things here. I don't know that person makes it very far at Apple right now, or even gets in the door. Because at this point, Apple is its own machine, and that machine has a track record of success, and that, more than anything, is what's going to matter. You can do your little moonshot stuff like the Vision Pro, but that's, even that was launched as a limited product, so that, if it didn't do well, which by all accounts it's done okay, but it hasn't lit a fire under the industry or made people really go, wow, Apple, they're look at this thing. I don't think that's really, I don't know that they really thought it would, no matter what they say. I don't know that there was ever the real expectation of that. It sounds like the Vision Pro product was not universally loved within Apple. And so, I don't know that anybody with any sense was really expecting it to be a huge thing. That I'm sure they would have been thrilled if it was. Do not misunderstand. They wouldn't have objected to it. Did I forget? Yes, I sure did. I forgot to do I did not blot out these areas. All right, let's do that really quick. But that's the closest modern thing to something like the older Macs. And I don't even think it's all that close. Because again, it's just, I don't know. The Vision Pro is a weird product to me. I think the most interesting aspect of the Vision Pro is that it demonstrates that Apple can still make bad decisions. Honestly, if you're asking me, that's how I look at it. And that's not even not a bad decision, again, that threatens the company. That company's fine. But it's a weird device in many ways. And it just doesn't even feel like something, I don't know. Vision Pro is a fascinating product for how un-Apple-like it feels. Just doesn't even feel like a category Apple actually really cares about. Almost like they just felt, oh, I thought so. I knew it. More like somebody within the company felt like they had to have something there. Did they think that there was some kind of possible threat there? Kind of what a lot of people are saying their movement on AI is now, because they got caught on that one. And the closest thing they have to an AI product, which would be Siri, is absolutely horrible. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. I have no major issues with the Siri product, but at the same time, I certainly wouldn't put it in the top end of the assistants that exist. It's definitely on the low end. But because I don't require much of it, I guess I don't have as much of a problem with it as some people. I mean, I know it's dumb as a brick. And there are times where it does things that are just mysterious to me. How it gets certain things wrong. And what it chooses to... There are times I've asked it the same question twice. And the first time it tries to give me web results, and the second time it does what I asked it to. And I cannot find any logic to it. None. So I don't know. But that's the thing where in the upcoming WWDC, which by the time this hits YouTube, because that's where I'm going to assume, since I don't see anybody in the live thing, that's where I think most people are going to see this. That's of course long past by the time this comes out, but that's what everybody thinks Apple is going to be betting big on, is the AI side of things. To improve Siri, apparently they just recently, as of this stream, signed an agreement with OpenAI to... Oops, I erased too much there, didn't I? Oh no, did I dig into that? Oh, I did. Okay, I'm okay. I went too far right here, so it's not a big deal. Just have to be careful on that edge. They signed some kind of agreement with OpenAI to power what will likely be the next version of Siri, which I think is going to be the same name. I think they're just going to, they said it'll just be enhanced somehow. And that's a space a lot of people said, yeah, Apple somehow didn't see that coming. And I think some of it is because they thought they had I really do think that they thought they had a compelling answer for VR, which is a space, to be fair to Apple about it, because there is this aspect of it that I think a lot of people do not fairly give Apple credit for, is VR is one of these things where there's always a sense of expectation. There seems to be the desire for that technology to really finally live up to the potential that it's supposed to have. It's just that nobody's been able to do it. And I think Apple really felt like there was an opportunity there. And that is Apple's normal MO, is to come into a space where there are solutions, but they're not that great. The thing is, and this is where it's interesting, that this is a little different than what they normally do. Normally, Apple comes into a space where there are kind of demonstrated successful solutions for things. They just aren't the best versions of those solutions. And then Apple comes along and gives what they think is the ideal version of it, or a nearly ideal version of what they think people want, and a lot of times they're right. So cell phones already existed. They came in with touchscreens on that. Tablets already existed, but they came in with the iPad on that, and arguably made the best version of a tablet that currently exists. I think it's hard to argue that point. Not necessarily saying an iPad is the right tablet solution for everybody, but as far as assessing the quality of tablets, it's pretty good. As I've said many times, which I don't like. I've said that before too. I don't like that there's no competition in this space, or at least no real competition. Amazon Fire tablets and Chrome tablets are just not competition. They're not. I'm sorry. They're just not. Wait, let me look at that really quick. Yeah, that's what I thought. But that's usually how Apple does it, is that, okay, somebody's doing this. Whereas the VR thing, it's not as if the headsets that exist are seem to be bad. It's just not a space that I think there's all that much demand in for, I should say. You know, I just don't see it. And I think a lot of people don't see it because it's been almost happening for so long that there is a certain point where you think, well, is the reason that this hasn't blown up, that there hasn't been the big breakthrough in this particular technology space, is it possibly, maybe, because the audience for it is just never going to get above a certain amount, and it's not enough to make it a breakout space? That's my hunch on it. I've tried VR. It doesn't make me sick or anything, some of the physical problems that some people have where they just can't handle it. It was impressive, but I never thought, well, I would spend a lot of time doing this, and I still don't. The Vision Pro is not going to change that, I think, for most people. They're not going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to spend, there are people who are, they're the kind of the fans of it that spend all day in it. But I also think a lot of those people, whether they want to admit it or not, I think for a lot of them, I mean, there are very specific, unique use cases that some people have. They work really well in a VR space where I think a lot of people wouldn't. But I also think they just so want to believe in what Apple's doing that they convince themselves a bit of what it is. There's a lot of that in Apple spaces. And I say that as somebody who is doing this stream on a Mac and an iPad. I am not anti-Apple, clearly, because I'm using their products. And they work well. I have advocated for them to others. But I also don't have any blinders on about them as a company. And that's one thing I think a lot of people, they lose the ability to see any faults in Apple because they do tend to make good products. Well, that's fine, but that's not the end of what a company's, vision should be. It shouldn't just be success. It should be, okay, we did this thing right. What's the next thing we can do? How can we take something that's already successful and make it energizing? Because that stagnation problem, it's a real thing. It is a real problem when things just feel like they're ho-hum. Even acknowledging that many of these products, if you grew up when computers and cell phones weren't everywhere, these things are basically magical. They are. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I remember growing up with a computer that could not do a fraction of what these machines can do. It's astonishing how good they are. It really is. Like, this thing is a miracle compared to the computer I spent. The first computer I had couldn't manage 4 colors without struggling sometimes. 4 colors on a monitor. And it sometimes had some issues. So this thing that I'm using right now to do this stream, the fact that I'm doing this stream, also there was no persistent internet the way there is now. The idea of having an HD stream of anything was laughable. I mean, it was a joke. So we do live in some ways in the, as the most magical compute time you've ever had, because you can, I could literally probably do some version of this stream from my phone. If I could draw on my phone. The screen's too small for me because I'm old. But I could do it. I could probably run a version of this stream from my phone. That's lunatic stuff. That's magic to younger me. It's like, no, you're lying. There's no way you could actually do that. No pocket-sized computer would possibly be able to handle that. Also, how would you stream it? Because there's no bandwidth for such a thing. The US Robotics 44 modem I've got here, or whatever, 92X modem, could not possibly transmit that much data. It can't be done. You are a fool. Stop saying these things. That's what it would be like. And yet, here I am, streaming this stuff. But, as with everything, there are limitations, and we are coming up to the hour mark, so I think at this point, I will probably, as I've just been essentially monologuing about Apple now for a while, it's probably a good place to bring the stream to a close. I usually am for about an hour anyway. And I feel like my voice is starting to kind of go on me. Don't really know why. I feel fine as far as I know. But, yeah, so I think at this point, I'm going to bring this stream, I think, to a close. But you can see where this is going. I mean, you're getting the outlines of it. You're seeing where it is. And this is the process. So eventually, because like I said, these will not, I'll just show you. So see, the idea of this, just so you can have a sense of it, is see how each of these looks different? That's the idea, is I want them to look like different pieces of glass that were laid in next to each other. So I don't want them to be uniform. And that's why I have to keep doing all these different things and erasing, so that creates these different patterns. And then at the end, all of this will look like pieces of glass that were individually cut at different angles or formed or whatever. And that's the idea. That is the artifice of what I'm going for here, is the idea of simulating different pieces of glass. And so to be able to do that, I have to go in and I have to erase all these different in-between elements. That's why I also don't want ones right next to each other, because otherwise that breaks that. So it's going to take a while. But yeah, I'm getting there. The progress is being made. I mean, it is. It is absolutely getting there. And fortunately, the turning the one layer yellow system has worked out really well so that I know where the boundaries are very clearly. It's made it a lot easier than the way I used to do it, which was just to turn the transparency down on one. I made so many mistakes that way. I don't know why it never occurred to me to do the color inversion thing like this, because it's so much easier to see what I'm doing. I don't know why this did not occur to me until I think this is the first image I've done this on. I'm pretty sure. But I guarantee it won't be the last, because this is far better than what I used to do. I mean, it's just ridiculous that I wasn't doing this the whole time. So anyway, that is what the stream is. So we're going to go ahead and, yeah, we're going to bring this to a close, I think, because iPad is also starting to heat up. Actually, I guess the thermals would be one other argument for me to get if I was in any financial or really rational place. Plus, I really wouldn't want to get the first one with the OLED screen. I'm sure it's fine, but anytime they make design changes, I often advise people, don't buy those products. Wait, make sure there's no issues. I saw there was some minor thing about the color blue, but I'm pretty sure they said they're fixing that in software. So I didn't really expect there to be serious issues with it. Apple's pretty good at testing their stuff before they put it out. Pretty good. No company is perfect, but they do a pretty... I think that is actually yellow there. Let's see. It is. Yeah, I thought so. But they're usually pretty good, so I didn't really... If Apple's going to have a problem on launch, it's going to be a big problem. It's not going to be minor stuff like, blue color that they're not going to be able to fix really quickly. They're going to have the huge issues where, I mean, they kind of headed off the whole thing of the thinness by saying, no, we've done bend testing. It's not going to bend, because I think a lot of people were. I was kind of curious about that myself. Like, wow, that thing is so thin. Is it really not going to have a problem with bending? But based on they showed that they had done some really interesting structural reinforcement on that thing to prevent it. So I have to believe that they did. Did I erase? Okay, no, I'm okay. All right, I couldn't tell if I did that or not. I'm fine. But and that's what I mean about it. They had to know that question would come, because for some reason on every iPhone somebody breaks it. There's these channels that are just devoted to breaking things, but not even breaking things that I feel like is a really analytical way. They just want to break them so they can say, oh, look, we broke an iPhone. And it's like, oh, okay, you broke an iPhone. Great, you broke an iPhone. Anyway, okay, let's wrap this up. So let's turn this way. Let's go ahead and put my little be right back thing up. There we are. So yeah, that's where we're gonna finish out for this particular evening. And I don't think anybody was here for the live thing, so that's perfectly fine. I say every time, and I absolutely mean it, that it doesn't matter to me when you see this. I appreciate you watching whatever you do. And as I always say on my streams, go and experience some creativity from somebody else, because I think it's good for you. Go do something creative if you can. That's great too. But I know not everybody is in a capacity to do that. It's just, I forgot to silence my phone. Sorry about that. But that was a nothing email. But if you can't do something yourself, then go watch somebody else be creative. Music. I don't know if people actually stream their writing. That would be interesting if a writer was actually streaming their kind of creative process. That would actually probably be really interesting to see. I don't know if anybody does it. But there are plenty of people who do music. I've seen that stuff, and other visual arts like I'm doing, and photo retouching and that type of thing. So there's all different avenues of creativity out there for you to experience. So go forth from here and either be creative yourself or go watch somebody else be creative for a while, because I think it's good for you. And like I said, however you're seeing this, I appreciate you coming by. And yeah, that's it. So until the next stream, insert boilerplate language here until I can think of something more clever to say. And on that note, thanks again for stopping by. And until next time, take care.